Call the meeting to order at 6:33. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Present.
Here.
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 Here. There are no trustees attending remotely. Nothing on the mayoral report, so we'll move on to citizens wishing to address the board. I have 4 people listed here, Madam Clerk. Here's a list, and if you wouldn't mind reading the
Procedures for public comment at board meetings. The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. Board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and questions. Board strives to make the best decisions for the village, and public input is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of this meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board and the democratic process in your comments tonight. Please state your name and address and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be factual and courteous, and the board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. To the extent multiple speakers are addressing a single issue, the mayor or chair of the meeting reserves the right to limit the number of speakers making public comment of a repetitive nature and or limit the amount of time for public comment. The board does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, if you want to read off the call up the first citizen that wants to address the board. Jim, you have the timer, so we'll try this again.
Okay, we have Paul Green.
Good evening, Paul Green, Antioch Township. I just want to say that I am very impressed with Public Works and their right-of-way cleanup. So I'm always on Freever Road in Tiffany, and it's made a big difference. So I just want to say thank you to the Public Works people for doing a great job.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
And I hope that you guys go back to the utility companies, maybe see if they want to invest in that program, and also the Antioch Township, because some of that road on Freever is Antioch Township. So if you were to go out and see and say, hey, our citizens really like what was done, maybe they can give us some help or so. Thank you very much. Dennis, thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Crystal Penn.
I'm Crystal Penn. I live in Antioch. My address is on the sheet. I came to a board meeting several months ago to inform you that your village code of conduct, as outlined in resolution 1620, was being broken. Some of you reached out to me after and told me that you do believe in the words in that code, and you do believe that trustees should act, even in their personal lives, in a manner that garners public trust. I've since had to reach out and inform you it's been violated again, and this time in an escalated manner, targeting even more Antioch citizens. The guidelines of your code state, and I quote, "This code sets forth principles and examples of proper behavior and conduct, and also constitutes guidelines and standards that are enforceable, not merely suggestions," end quote. And it goes on to tell you how you may enforce it. Did you really pass this resolution in good faith? Or is it just a pile of hollow words and empty promises? You've been informed of the breach of this code at least twice. You should at least investigate if you think the code has been broken, and if so, hold your colleague accountable. The citizens of Antioch who have been harmed deserve at least that. Your action or inaction on this matter will speak volumes to us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, Linda Monty.
Hi, Linda Monty, Antioch. I live in Antioch. There was kind of a lot of like an uproar, a lot of phone calls, a lot of this from the last meeting about the movie theater, so I just wanted to come and address a few more things. I heard at the last meeting that this was a private transaction from many of you up there, but really it's the vote from a public meeting that will allow this transaction to happen, and without that vote, it cannot happen. The board is accountable to the taxpayers and to have their best interest in mind and the village. And when you vote for something, you should stick for it. And we had a vote 8 months ago or 7 months ago, and now to change it, you should not be swayed by threats or misinformation. It is your obligation to be informed and ask questions to make the best decision and not rush things to vote for something that's changed and new that we worked 8 months for. It's obvious that Tim does not have the best interests of the village in mind or the taxpayers, because he's been claiming that he wants to get out of here for the past 2 years, and it could have been closed already in the middle of August. Now we've dragged this out till the end of September, and who knows how much longer. And he changed direction right when we were on the 1 yard line. And now it's bringing it back to the board and creating all these things. So there must be some type of underlying thing that's happening that we are not aware of. He's also trying to discredit me with a letter and some other things. And I know he's done this to many of the board members before and some of the staff. He stood in front of you saying that the theater, he's taken it as far as he can go. He's not a marketer. He's not an event planner. He does not have any promotional experience. And that's what I brought to the theater. And that's why he said I was the best person for the job. 2 weeks ago, he introduced a new buyer, had none of those qualifications. And then he changed his tune and said, the movie business is really the bread and butter of the business. It is really a drastically changing business. And if it fails, my question to you is, where does all that ticket tax money go that will be paid to Tim over the next couple of years if for some reason this business does fail? Does that money just stay in his pocket? Lastly, this was a 3-party agreement between my name, Linda Monte, Tim, the theater, I don't know how he had it in there, and the village. I would like to know what the legal side of that agreement is, and if I also had an attorney reviewing it. He could not be here tonight, but is it really that easy, and is it really that important for you guys just to change it that quickly without any due diligence, without understanding who this person is, and just making such a rash decision or quick decision when your responsibility is to the taxpayers and to the village, and the economic development that was going to happen with all the ideas that I had for this theater are going to be incredible for all the other businesses and the restaurants and the stores and everything, and bringing exciting new things to the village. Is that not important anymore? Because nobody seems to know what is going to happen now, or what kind of ideas this person is going to bring.
That's the first.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Linda. All right, next.
And friendly Mike O'Mara.
So my name is Michael Mara, Antioch resident. Most of what I was going to bring up and touch on, Ms. Monty just mentioned most of it, but I did want to bring up a concern. I was here at the last meeting, and last meeting there was an agenda item. And Ms. Monty came up here and she spoke, and she was cut off not once but twice under the 3-minute time limit that she should not even have been under, because it was an agenda item. So I think there was a violation of her right to address properly the board at the last meeting. I think that should be addressed over the course of this meeting. And then as far as going with Tim and cutting the new deal and the tax dollar assessment and whatnot, this is the second time Mr. Monty has come before the board asking for a tax cut. The first time was when he purchased the theater in the first place. He got nearly $200,000 both in donations from the village and taxes. So now he wants to sell his theater now for additional profit of some $300,000 off the taxpayers' money again. And over the 8-9 months that you guys were working and talking to Ms. Monty and Mr. Downing, you were basing a lot of your decision on the professionalism, the background that Ms. Monty had as far as entertainment, publicity, promotional skills, everything else. And the new purchaser, I believe last month, came up here and was asked what qualifications he had to run a theater. Why should we invest our tax dollars on you? And his answer was really, really broad and said, I have no experience. I've never ran a theater. I've never ran entertainment. I have no production experience or promotional experience. But yet everybody said, well, let's just take a gamble with our tax dollars, my tax dollars, everybody else's tax dollars, and roll the dice and hope that you can close. I would like you to reconsider until you get more information on the ability for the new buyer to at least pay back the loan. That's all I ask.
Thank you. All right, before we move to the consent agenda, I'm going to go back one item to the mayoral report and put him on the spot. So I just wanted to introduce our new District 34 Superintendent, Aaron Borowiak. I butchered the last name. If you want to just introduce yourself to the board, I welcome that opportunity.
Sure, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Aaron Broviak, so we're supposed to, thank you so much, yep. Thank you, I'm also a proud resident of Antioch as well, so I'm excited to be here and want to invite everybody. We're also having a safety night for parents and families at Antioch 34. It's going to be at August on October 3rd at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be talking about our new ALICE training, which we've been implementing with our schools and training our students to prepare for safety. And we're also going to have cybersecurity and some other breakout sessions for families and parents. So just get that message out. But thank you so much, and appreciate all the support. Heard a lot of tremendous support for our schools. Everybody's been very welcoming, very great to be here. So thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wishes to remove? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion in a second on those items. So moved. Motion trustee Luther.
Second.
Second trustee Peterson. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick,
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the regular business, is consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $752,137.92. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Dominiac,
Second.
second trustee Peterson. Roll call, please. Discussion, trustee Pierce.
Can we have a definition or an explanation of what the Ordinance Inc. is, the $368,000 on there?
Ordine is the contractor that was selected to do the environmental cleanup work across the street. So yeah, about half of this AP is that contract.
Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick,
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of an ordinance authorizing and approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission and the Village of Antioch for the Sequoi Creek Channel Improvements, ordinance number 22-09-51. I'd entertain a motion and a second waiving the second reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion trustee Peterson waiving the second reading, second trustee Dominiac. Any discussion on this item? Not, roll call, please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick,
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of an ordinance authorizing Northern Illinois Gas Company, DBA Nicor Gas Company, its successors and assigns to construct, operate, and maintain a gas distributing system in and through the Village of Antioch, Illinois, ordinance number 22-09-52. I entertain a motion and a second waiving the second reading.
So moved. Second.
Motion trustee Peterson waiving the second reading, second trustee Dominiac. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick,
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Item number 6, consideration and approval of an ordinance approving a ticket sales rebate agreement, ordinance number 22-09-53. I'd entertain a motion to second, either waiving the second reading or not.
Move to approve waiving the second
Motion trustee Dominiac to waive the second reading.
I'll second.
Second trustee Luther. Discussion. Trustee Pierce.
This whole thing is a learning experience for me as we go forward in this evolution with the theater. I mean, it's very important to us that we keep the theater going in town. And I think that was the driving focus of why we were working on this. But as this goes further and further forward, it's almost like we're getting more and more water just dumped on us over this theater. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to put on the next agenda, rescinding of any agreement we have on private funding or village funding towards this or taxing authority. I think we're proving out that sometimes private business is private business. We shouldn't be involved in all of it.
Any other discussion on this end?
Yeah,
Trustee Mason.
so I'm in favor of a movie theater, start out from there. I tried to contact staff to get additional information. I didn't get a phone call return. So I tried to get a couple questions in. I think there was a parliamentary procedure error of Ms. Monty signing up. I think she should have been allowed to talk. I was not allowed to get some of my questions answered. I'm going to step back and not vote on this at all. I think I think the people that donated money in the first round have need some type of explanation. Second, there's trustees that put this Monty up, and we're treating two people differently. We're treating, and you can say men or women, but gosh darn it, people on this board wanted her to put half her house up. They wanted skin in the game. They wanted assurances, and everything else, venture capital. And all of a sudden now we're just going to do a flip-flop name change. We don't even know. I don't even know if this theater is going to be open 7 days a week. I wasn't able to ask questions. So I want a theater. It was a couple, $2-3. I'm going to say $2-3 when I was a kid, which was less than that. But how much is a ticket? Is there going to be pending litigation from moving forward? Are we doing this for nothing? Is there a hold harmless agreement? I don't see the agreement. So I can't vote on this. I'm going to step back and not even vote on this. This is so premature. This is just left out. I didn't get questions answered. I didn't get staff return phone calls. So I'm going to step back and not rescind. I'm just not going to vote.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Peterson, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. To me, this agreement between Ms. Monty and Tim Downey is a personal one. We don't get involved in any of the other buildings in town when they're for sale. They can sell to whoever they want. Now, Tim Downey has decided not to enter into this land contract with Linda Monty. And the village really cannot make Mr. Downey sell it to Linda on this land contract. We don't have absolute power. We can't make anyone sell to anyone else. So we're right in the middle of this without really being in the middle of it. It's a private sale between two people. And now Ms. Monty is out of this sale. He's decided to back out. He doesn't want to sell. And here we are with the ticket tax. I'd really like to step back a little bit and table it for at least one meeting. And I'd really like to really look at this. And I'd like to find out at the end of the day what we're going to do if this doesn't work out. What happens to the ticket tax? I'd really like to discuss this, and I'd like to just go a little bit slower and step back and table it. I know it's on the floor, but I'd really like to pull it.
Is that a motion to table?
Yes, it is.
I'll second.
Motion trustee Peterson to table the matter, second trustee Pierce. Roll call.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
No.
Herman,
Yes.
Minnion,
We table this, then the rest of us do not have an opportunity to speak on this subject.
A motion to table, sorry, a motion to table is not debatable, as you know, trustee,
I
so,
know, but does that mean we can no longer speak about this topic? Because if it passes, then it's off the agenda and I don't have an opportunity to speak on it. So I just want to clarify that
Today.
today.
right, today, I mean, it's coming back, I mean, it'll be tabled for the next meeting, that's what the motion for the trustee, Madam Clerk, unless I'm in error, was a motion to table to the next meeting, so that would be, okay, so it's, but not a motion to indefinitely table.
No,
Okay,
No.
so it's a motion to table, do you have a date certain, trustee, or no?
next meeting.
So that would be, what day is that, Madam Clerk?
October 4th.
Sorry to put you on the spot. 10-12.
No,
4 voting yes, 2 voting no, motion carries. So that item is tabled, and see you back on the 14th for that item, 12th. Next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of an ordinance authorizing and approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Lake County Forest Preserve District and the Village of Antioch for Grimm Road improvements. Ordinance number 22-09-54. Do I have a motion and a second waiving the second reading?
So moved.
Motion trustee Luther.
I heard a second out here.
Second trustee Pierce. Any discussion?
Can we get an explanation from the village administrator so that the public knows what we're talking about?
Certainly. So with the improvements proposed for Grimm Road, we're currently in kind of a property acquisition phase. Grimm Road is owned to Centerline. So on the south side of Grimm, east of the tracks, the Forest Preserve technically owns to the center line of the road. For us to proceed with grant funding, we have to have certified right of way, or fee simple interest. So it's been about a year. I've been negotiating with the Forest Preserve District on various elements of them dedicating land to Grimm Road as right of way. It's been appraised. The value is determined on the square footage of land to be $20,000. They would like certain field tile to be disconnected so that the Forest Preserve land can get restored. They're requesting the village use its best commercial effort to attempt to get the overhead utilities relocated to the north side of Grimm Road. They're requesting the portion of Grimm Road that exists that will no longer be used as Grimm. This would be land between the creek and where the new Grimm alignment will curve toward Bodycraft to be vacated, that half width right away to be vacated in their favor. So there's been a long list of items that we've went back and forth on for over a year now. We've finally got an agreement in the form of an intergovernmental agreement, which stipulates all of these things, clarifies them, clarifies the village's obligations, the Forest Preserve's obligations, and what we have to perform. So that's a synopsis of what this IGA does. Did I answer your question?
Well, you answered my question. So basically, the Forest Preserve wants their cake and eat it, and they stuck us with the part that road for the longest time. Is what you're telling me.
Those are not my words.
Those are my words.
My words were.
All right. Any other discussion on that? If not, roll call, please.
Pierce,
No.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
No.
Herman,
Yes.
Minnion,
yes,
4 voting yes, 2 voting no, motion carries. All right, anything on the administrator's report?
Quick updates, Your Honor. You may have noticed if you drive down Orchard, the police parking lot has started. The grubbing and clearing crew has been there and it's getting rid of the vegetation. So I'm all excited to see progress on that. The road program is nearing completion. We're still placing some surface in Sequoi Terrace neighborhood. I think we've done over at Tiffany Farms and it's pretty good. And I am in a process right now to review architectural proposals. We had a significant response to our request for qualifications for architects for Public Works and Village Hall. We got 11 highly qualified firms. So we're in that process. We intend to, short with me and Michael Garrigan and Dennis Heimbrodt, we're going to rank them, develop a short list of interviewees. And we'll proceed to bring Village Architect on board to help us with those projects in the villages that would need architect work. So just want to let you know we're working on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Village clerk and report. Any trustee reports? Not this time. All right. If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting. Motion trustee Dominiac.
Second.
Second trustee Peterson, roll call please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Minnion.
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Meetings adjourned at 6:59. We will resume at 7:05 for the committee of the whole meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 7:06. Roll call please.
Trustee Pierce.
I'm present.
Trustee
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
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 Present. Everybody's here. First item on the agenda is the approval of the September 14, 2022 committee of the whole meeting minutes as presented. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion trustee Mason. Second trustee Pierce. Roll call please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Yes.
6 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. We already went through citizens wishing to address the board. First item on the regular business is discussion regarding the request for a cannabis dispensary. We have Mr. Jeff Scales here, I believe.
And Zach Zeiss.
And Zach, okay. So the floor is yours. I know in our packet, we received a PowerPoint presentation, so.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
My name
so,
is Zachary.
yep, and then just for the record, Michael Garrigan is at a work ceremony, so he's trying to, he might jump on here on Zoom. I don't know if anyone, Jim, if you let us know if he pops on, but otherwise, the floor is yours.
Great. So just a little context. Antioch's already passed an ordinance that allows for the use of a dispensary. That happened way before everything else. And a couple of years ago, the state put out this sort of RFP for.
Excuse me, Your Honor, could we ask the petitioner to speak to us?
Yes, just,
Oh,
yeah,
great.
just at the microphone because
Guys,
I don't know who's-
I don't. Great. So
Thank you.
background here is I worked with a bunch of applicants who won dispensary licenses, and now we're continuing to work with them to stand up places. If you Google me, you'll see I'm touring this section of the state in a number of ways. Antioch presents a really attractive opportunity, primarily based on the fact that there aren't dispensaries nearby. I think the nearest one is in Mundelein, which is not particularly close. And for strategic reasons, the proximity to the Wisconsin border is also really beneficial. So I've been operating a dispensary in Chicago since the end of 2015, dispensary 33, first to open up in the city. I've been operating continuously since then. I have a second dispensary in the West Loop section of Chicago now as well for the last year. I like to believe we run an excellent and pretty shop. So with that in hand, I'm going to go through the deck a little bit, and by all means ask me questions as they come along. I don't come before you today as dispensary 33. Dispensary 33 itself is actually getting sold, but that's sort of my professional background and sort of the expertise on which I rely. Everything we do, it'd be nice if I'm making sure that I'm seeing what you're saying. Why don't we go up to slide number 3? If we could,
We're back.
back to slide number 3. Okay, great, thank you. There are a lot of codes written or statute that requires that we keep guards on site at all times, that all doors are locked and controlled access, that there's security surveillance on 100% of the interior and exterior of the facility. We've never had a violent incident in our store in the 7 years we've been operating. On the next slide. Yes, great. So as I said, we tend to be incident free. What we're doing is incredibly distinct from what you might imagine a bar does. Our clientele are very different. In general, the people who are choosing to come into a licensed adult use dispensary are doing so because they want to be law abiding. Otherwise, they could go on the street and buy weed for a lot cheaper than anything we sell. So clientele tend to be affluent, they tend to be law abiding. And everything that happens inside of these facilities tends to be very just quiet on the other. Next slide. Thank you. So written into the statute about the adult use cannabis laws is part of the taxation waterfall accrues directly to Antioch. I think it's a 3%. 3% of all of our sales will come directly to Antioch. And so that figures to be somewhere in the $250,000 range, $300,000 range every year, directly to the village. In addition to that, obviously, we'll be employing people, projected somewhere between 30 and 40 people. Obviously, we prefer to be drawing from as local as possible. So our current wages start at $17.50 an hour. Our average employee makes $45,000 a year. So historically, retail isn't the best paying gigs out there, but the reality is that for what we're doing, we're able to, for the most part, pay people a living wage. And that's just at the retail level staff. Obviously, their managers continue to make considerably more than that. I think our store managers make $70,000. In addition, we do, even for the store level staff, we offer IRA plans, health benefits, and we also do donation matching to local nonprofits. In terms of what we've done and what we plan to bring here as well, we take a lot of pride in how we present ourselves, in the experience we offer customers. This is a picture of the store that we opened originally 7 years ago. We try to make a space that's incredibly experiential so that people have the ability to walk around and discuss as they wish with staff the different products we have. There are other stores where you walk in and it's just a sort of cubicle experience or like a bank teller experience, and that's very much not how we like to do business. We want to give people the ability to come in and out quickly if that's what they want to do, and pre-order and get out in 3 minutes, which is the average time in the store for someone who's pre-ordered. But for someone who's new to this product and wants time to interact and learn more, we want to be able to do that as well. The store that we opened last year in the West Loop, these are just pictures of what it looks like. As I was talking about, our philosophy is for spaces that are educational and experiential. So there's actual cannabis flower on display behind that glass, but there's no way for anyone who's not an employee to access it. Whether or not we choose to do that here is perhaps up in the air. We don't have a final layout for what we're trying to do, but it's something we prefer to do where we can. As part of that mission to being experiential and educational, we try to have every product in some form or other represented on the floor with placards so that people have the ability to read about what they're potentially looking to buy. So recently, Mundelein became, I believe, the first dispensary in the state to allow on-site consumption. And it's not something we have done in any of our stores in Chicago because it's not allowed in Chicago, but it's also something we're hoping gets considered here in Antioch. The one thing we know is that there aren't, as far as I understand, there have not been any particular incidents in Mundelein related to consumption. It's definitely a bit of a learning experience. It's something we'll have to be cautious and slow moving about. So the plan, the location we're considering now is
Main Street,
up on Main Street. It's currently undeveloped. So we're negotiating on this particular site. I don't believe it's finalized yet, but hopefully it's something we're going to continue to move forward with. But in the meantime, just want to make sure I've had a chance to introduce myself to you guys and to the rest of the community and see what your questions are and make sure that anything we choose to do moving forward is in alignment with your concerns. And that's the presentation.
Thank you very much. So I am going to open the floor to the trustees to ask questions. Typically we'll go around 2 times. Oh, yeah, so 2 times. So I'll start out here with trustee Pierce.
As one of the few members, there was a couple members here that were on the board at the time, but I did vote no for the ordinance overall because of the breadth of its permissiveness, large scale cultivation, swimming lounges and all that. So just to be upfront, I'm not a fan of this. I don't mind if people smoke pot in their own homes, if they do whatever they want to do, but I'm not a fan of this. It says on here you have pre-approved building, already approved construction plan. Is that approved by you guys or approved by the village?
So the site we're negotiating on by Roy, I'm gonna let him speak to that question because it's that predates anything that involves us or the dispensary.
Okay. So then the next thing I would ask the attorney if he can provide the village board members with the latest copy of our ordinance allowing this. Because I don't believe, as it says in this presentation, that we approved consumption on site. So if we did, I'd like to see that.
I will circulate the latest copy of the ordinance. It does discuss a prohibition related to the Smoke-Free Illinois Act. But I just rather circulate it. We're obviously not approving anything tonight, so I'll make sure that's circulated before the next board meeting.
And just for everybody's edification, I want to be clear, this does back up to my neighborhood, so I do have those concerns. I don't want to see anything spilling over to open walls.
Understood.
Thank you. Trustee Mason.
Not a user, but people have to understand it's a different world. And people that smoke it are gonna get it. People are gonna go to Mundelein. People are gonna get it from their neighborhood, whatever. Guys, what makes a dispensary, people have to understand what's happening with their border crisis is dispensaries make it a safer solution. Marijuana can easily be laced with fentanyl, as anybody would know. Dispensary, that's all regulated. The mentality for physicians has changed to where you're not gonna get your Vicodin, your Norcos, because they'll rather do the pain management, they'll give you a marijuana card before they wanna give you the Vicodin and Norcos. So the people that are in pain, back pain, and wouldn't use it just because I'm ingrained with 2 school teachers as parents, but I think within our ordinance, it's in the right place. It was when we passed the thing, people said, well, we're gonna have people going down Main Street. If we pass it, smoking marijuana, pot, all this other nonsense, that just, since the law passed, that doesn't happen. I go out with guys that are attorneys, doctors, since this, the gummy's the big thing. They're not smoking the pot, it's gummies, help people sleep. You do see people on the golf course, they'll do it to loosen up, but these are guys that are doing it before the law passed, so. To make it, I'm in the belief now, you get it from the shadowy neighbor that you don't know how many points in aid it came, or do you get it from the safer dispensary? And then the benefits of the tax. Now, Illinois, you're paying a big tax for the product compared to like Colorado, where Colorado is. Or Michigan, which is cheap. Illinois is very expensive. But when someone's going there, you're getting a safe product. That's the difference. People that are smoking now, they're probably buying it half of what a dispensary is. That's the important thing that people have to know.
Thank you. Trustee Peterson.
I am not opposed to a dispensary, but I am opposed to consumption at a dispensary. I am very much opposed to that. And there is this letter that came from Michael Garrigan, talks about a business plan, your business plan, where you were inquiring about a liquor license of gaming as well. I am not in favor of that at all. You want a dispensary, that's one thing, but a liquor license with gaming.
I'm pretty sure that got shot down in that conversation, so, like any good businessman, I'll ask for the world and see what comes back to me.
Yeah, it's actually insulting.
Why do you say that?
Asking for the world coming to us, to our town, and asking for a liquor license, gaming, and dispensary, and consumption in that dispensary or lounge. At least that's how I felt.
Can we
And that's how I,
come back around, Trustee Luther? Okay. I don't want to repeat questions, so I'm trying to think about this line. I'm gonna ask these questions based on the letter we got from Michael Garrigan and your presentation.
I haven't seen that letter for.
Okay. Well, and I'm gonna go
the
I'm gonna go a little bit line by line with it with you, because I just like to get your view on it. I'm 100% in favor of a dispensary coming into our town for the following reason is, because if we don't build one here, it's gonna pop up within a mile of our town border, and we don't get any of the benefit of the tax revenues of that, but we're gonna have all the same, any potential issues are still gonna be there. This isn't gonna go away, it's gonna expand. So I'm all in favor of that location, and what I saw in your presentation. I'm gonna ask questions about the consumption lounge because I don't know anything about that. And I understand Mundelein has one, there's a few other locations, but can you explain how that actually works? I mean, is it what it sounds like? Someone could just go in there and spend 6 or 8 hours in a lounge, and or was there a restriction, or what? Explain the basics of that so I have a little understanding.
The way it works in Mundelein, for whatever it's worth, is there is a time limit and there's a reservation system. That's not required by the state. At the end of the day, as I mentioned, I haven't operated a consumption lounge before, and it would definitely be a work in progress. But what we cannot do by statute is offer table service. So it can't be that you sit down, hey, party of 4, hey, here's a menu, and have a server bring it to you. That's not how it works. So you're gonna have a dispensary experience just like anyone else would, and purchase product at the dispensary, and then go to a table with the ability to consume it.
Okay. Now, is it the same as alcohol, for example, we have dram shop insurance or whatever, is it the same for marijuana? Under a consumption lounge like that?
Is there specific insurance related to the consumption piece?
Well, I mean, the serving of it, I mean, like, when a bar owner, if he overserves someone, they get in an accident, they have insurance, they could be held liable for that. Is it the same under this? For marijuana?
I'm gonna be honest, I haven't done the due diligence on the insurance piece. I obviously carry insurance with somebody, with a carrier that does provide consumption insurance, but I haven't gone through that process yet.
The next part, and this is once again on a staff report, but it mentions that you will be seeking a liquor license to allow for the consumption of liquor at the subject site. Do you know of any other consumption lounges that offer liquor anywhere in the state or anywhere in the country?
No, and I just want to retract that.
Okay, so that's off the table.
I might come back to you in a year after I open and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? But I'm not gonna come from the get-go and ask for that.
Appreciate that. Are you open to just the dispensary, or are you locked into if it's a dispensary and a consumption lounge, or?
You know, a lot of my, the appeal of Antioch, among other things, was that, listen, at the end of the day, the consumption lounge is not a huge money-making component of the business. It's more of the ability to draw people to have a facility that's large and experiential in a way that, you know, I talked about already as being kind of part of our identity. I get that it somehow feels different and scary, but at the end of the day, we're providing a safe place who are crossing over the border, for people who are crossing over the border to consume. It's important for us to make sure that that business model works out well for our customers and for the community. And as I've said, I haven't operated one before, and it might be a little trial and error, but I have every confidence we can operate that in a way that is a benefit to consumers and not a detraction at all to the community, and that draws business in. At the end of the day, I don't want a bunch of people going to Mundelein because they can do things there that we can't do here.
Just two more quick questions. Assuming this got approved by the village, everything was good, when do you envision this being operational?
For the site in question, because it's not a pre-existing building, we're sort of at the mercy of the construction schedule there. So I could imagine next summer at the earliest.
And then you'll be leasing that building, you won't be owning that building.
Correct.
And then is there, once again, I want to put words in your mouth, I didn't see anything in this, but are you gonna be looking for any type of incentives to open this business in the village?
I mean, if you're offering, I'd love to have them, but
I'm not offering,
it's not built
I'm
into
just asking.
it's not
now.
built into the business.
I'll put you on the spot now.
No, it's fine. I don't know what incentives there are. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not very savvy in that regard. I haven't done due diligence, and that's not the primary driver of my decision making.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Trustee Berman?
I have a question, but I don't think you're gonna be able to answer this. I thought I heard that Rome Lake had just approved, the board just approved a dispensary. Does anybody know if that is true or not? Okay. So I've got a few things here. I guess, let me start with this part. I think that the board needs to consider whether or not this type of thing fits the brand of our town. I mean, right now we're spending a lot of money to build that brand, which is that small town, family oriented feel. And I just don't feel that fits our brand that we've been working so hard on. I do not like the idea of the lounging, consuming, not the liquor license, not the gaming. I just think that there's definitely potential for problems. I think that a lot of times people see dollar signs and they're not looking at the negative aspects to it. You know, I've researched a lot and you hear different things from different sources. But I do not believe that there is not an increase in crime, like maybe as far as around the vicinity of the cannabis shop. Because you have armed guards and it's basically known as being essentially like a Fort Knox. But has there been any studies as far as a certain distance, a radius around those shops that where crime increases because it gets pushed out? For me, there's too many unknowns. I don't think that there's been enough studied on certain things like that. And there's some acts that have been passed and starting in the new year, I just think this is asking for trouble right now.
Thank you, trustee Dominiac.
Do you think I have any questions? My first question is, who's 280E LLC and who's dispensary 33? And I'm bringing that up because we just had a discussion earlier about not knowing someone who wants to buy a building in our community, and I don't know really who you are or what your business is. So if you could just start with that first page and explain to me what those two entities are.
Dispensary 33 is the operating company for these two dispensaries. It's public record that has already been agreed to be sold pending state approval.
Sold to whom?
An entity called Air Wellness, AYR Wellness. That's a publicly traded company.
So should we be negotiating about this with this new company that's going to be purchasing dispensary 33?
That new company doesn't have any licenses to open here. So 280E is the property company that we use.
So who has the license?
So as I mentioned in the beginning, we worked with 9 groups that collectively won 21 licenses in the Chicago larger area.
So who owns the license for this Antioch location?
So we would determine that after we figured out the real estate side. At the end of the day, the entity with the license doesn't have the money to deal with all of the expenses related to the real estate and the build out, et cetera. So the licensee and so on, we have relationships and consulting agreements with several licenses.
Okay, that personally for me is a little bit of a red flag, because you're asking us to potentially approve a dispensary with or without consumption, but we don't even really know who's gonna hold the license, so that's a red flag.
When I come back to you with an actual request for that special use, I'll demonstrate to you the agreement we have with the licensing.
I think that would be.
But the
really
licensing
important.
itself doesn't have the capital to transact here.
I understand you said that, but I think it would be good to know.
For sure.
What that is. So you're in the process of being sold.
But don't say we, now let's say the dispensary is in the
Dispensary is
process.
of being sold.
Yeah.
But the dispensary,
No, this is unrelated to the existing dispensary.
all right. So I guess, just like the discussion we were having earlier, and there were some concerns about the person that wants to buy the theater, that I don't feel comfortable that I have enough information about who's gonna actually own this business. We have basically 2 issues here. One is a dispensary and one is a lounge. I am not a fan of the lounge. I don't understand how that works. It looks like from your presentation that it's not edibles in Mundelein, and you have to bring your own if you want to go to DeKalb. And then when you go further south, you can have comedy and other things. So I'm assuming those 2 businesses are probably owned by the same company. So I'm not in support of the lounge. I don't understand the rationale for that. I don't see why you think that, and maybe it's because I don't understand the business. I have a little trepidation about the fact that you made a comment saying you've not done this before, so it'll be kind of trial and error. Are you looking at other locations with this same business concept?
With bringing consumption, you mean?
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Are they in Lake County,
Yeah, Winthrop Harbor.
Winthrop Harbor? Okay. Nowhere else in Lake County, Northwest Lake County.
Nothing's
That would
coming.
be potentially competitive with Antioch. Birdie,
Except for
Richmond,
Mundell.
Fox Lake.
No, none of those are on my radar.
Okay.
I haven't heard of anything.
Okay. The thing on Dram Shop, if I remember correctly, and Trustee Pierce brought up that we had a discussion about this, I don't believe, and I guess that would be a question for the attorney to investigate for us, is that there is anything with Dram Shop insurance, but I think that would be great to get that clarified.
Absolutely, Trustee.
This is still a cash business, right?
Predominantly cash. We are able to do reverse ATM transactions that sort of mitigate that to some degree, but predominantly cash.
And can you explain what a reverse ATM transaction is?
It's a way it's a way in which instead of going to an ATM and pulling out cash, you're at the POS register. And if something costs $58, we're able to do an ATM transaction basically that transfers $60 to us, and then we would give you back $2 in cash.
Okay,
It's well established in the industry as a compliant workaround to not pay cash, but it's a debit card ATM transaction that can occur at the POS register. But at the end of the day, yes, we're predominantly cash. We've been operating that way for 7 years. We have obviously a lot of security mechanisms in place. We have a bank, and so cash is getting transported regularly to a bank by a third party transporter.
okay. Moving on to the staff report, I see Mr. Garrigan has joined us, so perhaps he can answer this. But the question came up about the site plan being approved, and it does state in his report, an existing site plan was approved for this plan unit development, and the applicant is proposing to construct a 9,500 square foot building, which would mirror the same floor plate as the first building that was approved by the village board. So Mr. Garrigan, could you just speak to that and explain the history of that site plan? And does
Yes.
that mean that they would not have to come back to us to get approval for that site plan?
Well, you hear me, right? Yes, to answer your question directly, as you recall, we did approve a site plan and a plan unit development for the Troy Sunday development approximately over 2 years ago. Based on my discussions with the applicant, they are seeking to generally construct a building with the same floor plate. And they have requested modifications to the facade. I have not seen any elevations yet of the revised building. As you recall, the building that was approved was generally a tilt-up precast industrial character. The applicant, based on my discussions, has made it quite clear that that's really not consistent with their business plan. So they will be working with an architect to revise the elevations. The question is, would the planning commission and village board have an opportunity to see the site plan again? Depending on the changes, if there are significant changes, in all probability, we would have to require a site plan to go through the process again, probably potentially concurrent with a special use for the cannabis dispensary. If there are very minor changes, there is a specific language in the village's site plan review ordinance that allows an administrative review by staff. So to answer your question directly, it depends on the character of the proposed changes to the elevation, if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense. I think I'd like to suggest that regardless of what the changes are, that would be brought to us. Kind of tagging on to what Trustee Berman was saying about our brand. And I'm glad she brought that up because that was one of my concerns as well. Particularly after we just had a quarterly meeting where we talked about our image and how to bring more people into the community. I appreciate the fact that we did have a split vote on the cannabis that was broken by the former mayor to approve cannabis here in the community. So I have to wrestle myself with how I would vote on a dispensary only, considering that it is in the ordinance. There certainly is an opportunity at any time, and we've done that a number of times where we've revised and amended ordinances to meet the needs of the community as well as the petitioner, so I think that's something that I have to think about. Obviously, we're not gonna move forward on this hopefully too quickly. And my last question was, Administrator Kime, you had indicated to me that you had meetings with 2 other potential licensees or businesses that wanted to come into Antioch. I think it would be helpful for us to hear from those individuals as well, so that we can make the best decision for the community and for the taxpayers. That's all I have at this time. Your Honor.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, Trustee Pierce, I'm glad we're having this discussion because this brought up a lot of probably opinions on my part, but I'm gonna bring them out anyways. Number one, I want to know from the attorney, why do they need a special use if they're just doing a dispensary? Aren't dispensaries already allowed?
But that's a zoning code issue. So I believe that, and again, I was not the attorney at that point in time, we're obviously on the board. But the special use permit was part of your codification process, that's my understanding. I'll look to the administrator and the clerk to confirm that, but that's standard. I mean, in most municipalities, the dispensary is a special use.
So yeah, it's not allowed by right, it's allowed only as a special use. You have to grant the right, but it is indicated as an approved special use in the zone.
So just to be clear, special use means we have to grant that right.
Correct.
Okay. Then I look at this and I'm like, this hasn't even gone to planning and zoning board yet. And they want the board to indicate whether we're gonna approve their plans, no matter what the plans are. I think this is a little premature and is an attempt to poison the planning and zoning board. And I really don't appreciate that. I think the planning and zoning board has to tell us what they think and then we make our decision. The next thing, I don't even know what your business plan is. You're like, well, I'm gonna come up with one at some point when I figure out what I'm gonna do. I mean, I don't get it. If I was gonna come here and try to propose a $2 or $3 million business, I would be on my game. I would be prepared. I would have my papers and my ducks in a row. I think you're using the flypaper approach going, oh, this goes back to Trustee Peterson's insulting thing. I think this is, well, let's throw everything up on the wall and see what the yokels and Antioch will approve. And I haven't seen anything that convinces me that you're prepared at all. It's well, we'll build it, then the licensed person will come. Well, I'm not gonna request that stuff right now, but maybe I'll request it later, maybe in a year after I see what's going on. I think you're looking for a foot in the door.
I think it would be more proper to say we're looking to read the temperature of the room. And that's exactly what's happening now. We're getting a good read of the temperature, and before I commit a lot of resources to developing elevations, to putting down money on escrow money on real estate, etc., I want to make sure that this is a community that's interested in having me. And just to be clear, it was the village itself that asked me to come present so that we could have this exchange before I come to you with a flushed out plan and ask for an actual special use.
Okay, I'll give you that at the village ask you come ask.
And I think they were, personally, I think they were wise to, because otherwise we wouldn't have had this discussion, we wouldn't have stimulated this conversation. And hopefully you think this is fruitful.
It is fruitful because it shows me what we're dealing with. You mentioned wanting to cross-border business. For me, that's goes back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s when we were the cross-breaking border. I know times have changed, and people who smoke dope, smoke marijuana, they have their way of doing it, and they can consume, and everything's fine. But I don't want to see them driving around after they've been consuming. It was mentioned that a lot of money for the village, $200,000 or $300,000. Well, if it's all about the money, why don't we have other adult businesses here? Well, they had adult businesses on 41 and 173, and they ended up closing down after years and years of Supreme Court fights. So it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about the character of what you want to be. I don't think, I get a dispensary because I understand people have a need, and if they want to walk in and buy something that's clean and safe and say they have epilepsy, but they want the relief it brings them, or they've been a soldier, they need the relief from their PTSD. I get the need for dispensary. And I understand it. I wouldn't use it. I can see where other people do, but I don't get the need for consumption, all out, unlimited, well, whatever we can do there. So, and I think consumption on site leads to problems. I think that that unregulated, not unregulated, but just full out, whatever goes to get money hurts the village. We need to say, yes, we want money, but do it at what cost? And sometimes we have to draw a line and say, not this cost. So if you were asking my temperature, I would not be in favor of this at all, because as Trustee Dominiak says, I'd like to see what the competition is, because I'm hoping it's not all this. That's all to say.
Thank you. Trustee Mason, anything else?
No, I get what he's doing. He's getting the developer. Licenses are surprising no people that's in the file. We got some licenses, so he's trying to partner up with someone that's got a license. I get the concept. The lobbies, we passed that by ordinance. We can't have those in Antioch, so there's a lot of discussion on that. We already voted, that's not even a part of the plan. We can't have those, so we can't have those. We've already shot that down by ordinance. But I get your investment concept that you're trying to find someone that you're trying to commingle a relationship together. I get it. I understand the concept. I understand probably everything you're doing, so.
But do you support it?
Yeah, I do, because I'm a guy that sits there suffering back pain, and the first thing they say to me, I'll get you a marijuana card. I said, I don't want one, because I know, just I got a thing that says I won't remember stuff. So I won't do it, but I've got all my, people I golf with, they're older people. They'll all throw a gummy in their mouth before they golf. So it's there, and I got 87-year-old people that do it to help sleep. So I don't judge people. If I don't do it, I'm not gonna do it. Other people do it, God bless them. So, and they're gonna do it. So no one's gonna stop someone to drive the mud life. And the case I made here, sit here, I said, you're better off having someone drive 2 miles to get it than having someone drive 20 miles back and forth to get it. It's just like getting beer. You'd rather have someone get the beer close to home than driving 20 miles, because that's what it was. If you want to bring up Wisconsin blood border, that's the way it was when I was a kid. People were driving up here to Chicago to drink and then driving back drunk. That's what blood border is all about. So just have it home, let people get it, have it home, get your pizza and Cheetos, go home and watch a movie.
Thank you. Trustee Peters.
I have no other comments.
We do have 11 of them here too.
And like,
They're not open now. Trustee Luther.
I think what you've fallen into is a discussion that this board needs to have a little bit more about whether or not this board is open to the idea of having a dispensary here, not necessarily your dispensary, but a dispensary. Yes, the village board passed that before I was on board. And I think you're starting to see a little of why it was split at the board level prior. I'm gonna fall back to what I tend to think, I think commonsensically, that's correct English. It's a legal drug. They have these, there's, I think 2 or 3 in Rosemont. There's at least 1 or 2 in Schaumburg, right across from Whitfield Mall. They're all over the place, the dispensaries. So in regards to, how it impacts the vision of Antioch or how people see Antioch, I don't see that being an issue. But I can differ with others, and that's how it works, but I just see it as, if we don't build it or allow one, it's gonna pop up real close to us. We won't get any of the benefit of it, and we're gonna have all the same issues that everyone here is talking about. Only a block away, or 2 blocks away, or 3 blocks out of the borders of the village of Antioch, and we can't do a damn thing about it. So, in my opinion, we need to have the discussion at a board level in regards to, if any dispensary comes to town, are we going to welcome them and work with them to try to develop a dispensary program that works for the village? Or are we in a position that we're gonna say no to a dispensary because we're gonna waste our administrators' times and planning and zoning's time and everyone's time if this board isn't behind the idea of having a dispensary? We can have a discussion about the lounge. I don't like the idea of the liquor being served there or anything else, but the dispensary is the big issue. And if this board isn't behind that, then we need to discuss it, and so that we're not wasting a lot of people's time moving forward. And regretfully, you're taking the brunt of it because you were the first one to come in and do that. I'll thank you again for coming and presenting your program. And if it works out for the benefit of our town and we agree, then we'll work with you to make it happen. But like you said, this is initial discussion at this current board, and we have to get, this is what the cow's about, discussing these issues. So I just think it's something that's destined to be here at some point. The sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned, in regards to the revenue. We needed to hire more police. We need it for a lot of things in town. And I'd hate to see that money going down to Lake County or someone else right near us when it could be coming to the village. So that's all I'll say at this time. And I think we need to bring this up at an additional call, that just a general discussion of a dispensary and how we want to proceed as a village. Because there seems to be some really different opinions among the board members on how we want to proceed.
Thank you, Trustee Berman.
I think that the board also needs to consider, the residents that would be in that area, living close to a dispensary. I think that those residents should have a fair share and chance of saying whether they agree with it or not, because they're the ones that are going to be stuck living there. We shouldn't be forced out if they decide that they don't want to be next to a dispensary. And then I do have a question. Now, you had approached the village of Richmond, correct?
The village of Richmond approached me, but yes.
Okay. And then now they decided against it, or did?
They haven't decided against it. There was a lot of community concern about that particular location and specific traffic, specifically related to traffic there. And so I'm also seeking a different location that might be more amenable to their concerns.
Trustee Dominiak?
I'm a little confused. I asked you specifically if you had any other locations you were looking at. You specifically said Richmond, and you said no. Can you clarify?
I heard Lake County. You were asking about Lake.
You said Northwest. Maybe you didn't hear me. Okay, thank
I was here.
you.
And the difference there, sorry, when I mentioned Winthrop Harbor, that's a location that's already had its zoning approved,
Got it.
including consumption.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coming up and going through this.
Sure.
I do have a
Always a
question
pleasure.
that I would like to have answered, not tonight, because I don't want to put them on the spot, but I think it would be helpful based on some of the comments that were made, to ask the police chief at a future meeting to come with any data that he might have about the impact of these organizations, these businesses on the communities. My gut tells me there's not a significant difference, but I don't want to make that, I can't validate that. So if Administrator Kine, perhaps in the future, we could have some information from the police chief. I just want to clarify my comment earlier. We passed regardless of the fact that I wanted us to pass allowing a dispensary in this community, it was voted in. My comment was, now that it's voted in, how will I vote to allow a dispensary when we make a decision about which one we would like to have come in? I am not a proponent of going back and throwing the baby out with the bathwater and revising our ordinances, which is why on several occasions over the past several months, I voted no on things because we had ordinances that we were starting to amend. So I just want to be clear that if we have that ordinance in place, it's my own personal decision as to whether or not I will vote for it. I am not suggesting that we need to revisit the whole thing. If the rest of the board wants to do that, that's fine. I will participate in that discussion, and you can hear what I said the last time all over again. But I just want to clarify that as well. And that's all I have. I guess at this point, I'd like to follow up with Trustee Luthart's comment that we continue this discussion at the next COW, and have it maybe be led by staff and have a little bit, be able to look at the ordinance. I'm not sure it's in the ordinance that it prohibits lounges, and whether that was an error that we all missed or not, I don't know. We'll have to defer to the attorney for that. But I'd like us to bring this back and have more discussion about it. And I'd like to hear about all of the businesses that have come to meet with the staff, so that we have a good sense of who all is out there and what the interest of all is.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you for coming here. Yes.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it was a good discussion. I will ask the clerk to make sure that this is on the next committee of the whole meeting, discuss it at a staff level for further discussion. So you don't have to present on the 12th, but you're always welcome to come here or watch on Zoom or.
Yeah, I'll watch on Zoom.
Oh, no.
You have specific questions, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank
You
you.
guys do your due diligence to see if there's operators that may make you feel more comfortable with that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next item. Lost my agenda here. Next item is discussion regarding the ordinance adding section 7-1-5 to the Antioch Village Code regarding non-highway vehicles on village streets. Administrator Kine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before you in the packet is a draft ordinance to give you an idea of what your ordinance would look like. It's not in final format. I do see some things that need to be hashed out and edited. But based on the previous presentation to the board, there seemed to be enough interest to take it to an ordinance. We've met with the residents that are leading the charge on this, talked about different ordinances in Johnsburg and McHenry. I was kind of shocked to find out how many communities have gone forward and done this. Nonetheless, we put together what an ordinance may look like. I would like to see more definition on non-highway vehicles. I think we were intending to limit this to golf carts only and not other vehicles, because I don't know what other vehicles, other non-highway vehicles may look like. We all can envision side-by-sides and other different things, but there might be things out there I haven't even envisioned yet. So there'll be a little more back and forth, I think, with the legal team on drafting this, but it would be helpful for staff and the legal team to understand where the board is on it, having a glance at what an ordinance looks like. Be very interested in your feedback on how you'd like to see the final drafts come out. And for my part, I would make some pretty simple revisions on definitions, what a golf cart is. There's some language in there and how it would be, how a license may get revoked, I think needs some work. I like the simple button on this. We'd send it to our adjudication court. I don't think we'd appoint a golf cart hearing officer and have, extravagant processes by which to revoke these. I think it's, you get 3 tickets, your license gets yanked. And make it fairly straightforward and simple. There's also, I think, a tweak needed where these things can park. We specifically did not go into designating where these will park. Anywhere an automobile may park, I think a golf cart will be able to park. I think we should also approach this as let's see how it goes, a pilot of some sort. Maybe the golf carts congregate in certain areas and they'll tell us where the designated parking should be after we see it for a year. Or maybe we don't have to address parking at all. We've gone through and made a street map of streets that staff feels would be appropriate as designated streets. The omissions there are streets we don't control. We don't control North Avenue east of 83. So we cannot designate it as a street for golf carts. You can cross that street, get from Oakwood Knolls onto Anita. It's okay to cross non-designated streets, but we have not included those on our village map. Those are only streets under our jurisdiction. We've also excluded certain streets that don't lead to another street in our jurisdiction, like Nelson Road. There's no point in getting on Nelson Road with a golf cart because there's nowhere you can't get on a legal street after that. I believe we've excluded Tiffany, so we don't also a portion of Tiffany. Some residential areas may want to drive a golf cart into town and they utilize Lake Street. But Tiffany seems to be in the dangerous. North Avenue we've also excluded. There are ways to get from the subdivisions through neighborhoods like Antioch Manor and get into an area where you can get it downtown. So we put some thought into what streets would get the most amount of people access to the downtown without getting on streets we don't control. So I just thought I'd start with that, and I don't know if the group here wants to make any comments to you, or if you want to entertain any comments from the group, or how you want to proceed with
I'll
this.
just see if.
But this is where we're at this point in time.
I'll just see if the trustees have questions. If they do, they can address it. Trustees on the right side of the dais. Trustee Pierce.
As always. First of all, I think, going to your question of what vehicles are allowed or not allowed, I would be in favor of golf carts right now. I'm seeing all these little electric motorized vehicles driving all over the neighborhood. You know, kids driving little.
Trustee Pierce, could you speak?
I'm sorry, I thought you. Sorry.
You mean exclusively golf carts, not other things?
Exclusively golf carts, not other things. The other day I saw some older gentleman riding a low rider electric motorcycle type Jimmy Bobber. I couldn't even define what it was.
I think you need to define Jimmy Bobber.
I could be. But so I think exclusively golf carts for now. I also would like to see signage put up on all the roads, especially that it's allowed here, not allowed there. Because I think the biggest thing is going to be educating our public what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then enforcing it to make sure people are staying off North Avenue or Main Street or wherever it's dangerous. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Mason, do you have?
So you can cross 173. Not a problem.
No, you can cross, if you stay on a designated road and we've designated Hardin,
Okay, so
you can cross 173 legally, according to the state statute. You can enter into town from those subdivisions along 59. If you can get there legally, you can cross 173.
because that's a horrible place for
That's-
that's slow to cross.
It's the only place.
Yeah, that's just horrible, because I pronounced a 60-year-old kid dead there when I was in the rescue squad. That's just horrible. For 83, you're gonna have no restaurant parking on Main Street because that's blocked off and everything. How would you get, you'd have to go Orchard back to park in the back?
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming.
You have to get on Lake to Toft or.
You'd almost have to, and I don't see putting trail markers through the whole village of Antioch. You'd almost have to find the developer almost, because in the summertime, you gotta figure in the summertime, our population becomes from 30,000 double to 60,000 with boat season. So you almost have to, in golf carts have GPS on them, where to get too close to the green, they start beeping. You almost have to see if there's some type of development where an app can be based off if you're on the right road, you're on the wrong road. If that can be placed on someone's cell phone, that would be easy. I don't know if that would exist. That's way,
It's a good thought. I think we may see something like that. Since I'm not aware of a product like that.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You see that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's probably a market there.
Thank you, trustee Peterson.
I live right there by Hardin Street. Where we would cross 173. And I pull in and out of there all the time. So I'm not as afraid of it, I suppose. And I really have not seen an accident there. Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. And parking, how many golf carts are we gonna actually have the first year? I mean, seriously, they're expensive.
Yeah, I don't think you see a lot of them first.
Right, we're gonna demand that they are street legal, which is, they're expensive, they're not cheap. So I don't know how many we're gonna have, and I think we're gonna ease into this. And we'll see if parking's a problem down the road, well, maybe, we can adjust to that. But I'm thinking that people are gonna find their way around these streets. They already know. They know how to get around. If there's a lot of traffic on Main Street or it's busy uptown, you know how to get around and get out. And that's what's gonna happen. People are gonna cross Tiffany. They're gonna cross 173. They're gonna cross North Avenue. They're gonna get downtown. I don't see a problem. As long as everyone's careful, and driving any vehicle, you have to be careful and you have to be mindful. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, trustee Bluthart.
I'm grateful for how we've gotten this far already on this. Just a couple quick points. I mean, obviously we'll need to work on that map a little bit to fine tune it. I mean, one thing that's stuck out was Tiffany. You allowed it on certain aspects, areas of Tiffany, but not all of Tiffany. So I can see how that could cause some problems. I liked the idea of the $100 inspection or license fee. I see you brought it down in subsequent years to 50. Was there a reason for that? Because the same inspections involved, I mean, it would need to be re-inspected every year, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So, I mean, if it's $100 the first year, why is it only 50 the next year?
It was just a proposal. You guys can set the fees anything you like.
Okay. That I agree with trustee Pierce that this should be just for golf carts, and that we restricted to that. But otherwise, I mean, I think we need to proceed on this and just clean it up as best we can and move forward. I don't see us having tons and tons of golf carts the first couple of years. It might spread, but they are expensive, and but I'd love to see this start to take place. And just on a kidding note, I mean, I see on the map, I can get it, my pizza and my Cheetos, but I can't get to the dispenser. So we need to figure that part out. That's all.
Trustee Berman.
Sorry. So as far as narrowing it down, the description, so obviously we're not talking like golf cart, UTV, ATV,
things like that,
I
right?
specifically wanted to keep it golf carts, and I believe there's a definition either in the state statute or something we can come up with that will define what a golf cart is, and we're not talking about ATVs or UTVs.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I think it was somewhere close by there, they had,
Johnsburg,
that's it, they had originally allowed it and then it became like,
we talked to them, they specifically, they intentionally did what they did. They know they have ATVs and they're allowing them. Not to say that they don't have some issues, but they don't seem to regret what they've done.
well, and they also, don't they have a specified area like track for that? Where,
They have some trails that they have access to.
Thank you, trustee Dominiac.
I think it's great that we're moving forward on this so quickly, and I would concur that this should be the fully decked out golf carts, not the ones that you get at the golf course, but ones that's got all the bells and whistles for safety. I saw in here that you're saying anybody who has a valid driver's license. I'm wondering if we should put an age limit on this, particularly, I think there's, in the state of Illinois, there are two different types of driver's licenses when you're 16 versus when you're 18, and I think we might want to think about people being a little older before they can do this. You don't have Hillside on here coming off of by Anastasia's and then crossing 173.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's a one-way street and it's a steep street. I can see golf carts going southbound on that going real fast.
That's my concern, that people are gonna say, hey, let's go ride.
And that stop sign at the end there, I could see problems with it. At the end of the day, we talked about both of those. There are only two ways to get across 173. General consensus is it's safer at Hardin.
I agree. Well, I don't think it's safer. I think neither one of those. In fact, I don't like the fact that we're saying that people can cross 59 out of Aaron Harbor or 173 at Hardin or 83. The only way for me to get out of my subdivision is either to go Hardin to 173 or out 59. And I'll tell you, you can post a speed limit at 20 miles an hour and those trucks don't pay a darn bit of attention. And when I come out on Hardin and I want to turn right to go on to 173, there's a curve there over by the cemetery and you think you can go and those trucks and the cars come running by there. So I agree with trustee Masek that, you're on a golf cart, you don't have to pick up and go like you do in a car. That's very dangerous. Same thing with 59. They come down 59, there's a curve there by that house. I feel badly for the people that live in my subdivision or in Aaron Harbor or anybody else that would have to cross this, but I don't think we should allow it. If we have the right to not allow it, I think we should at least let them drive around in their subdivision. And I think I had a discussion with one of the petitioners about that as a start, but boy, I think you're just an accident waiting to happen. You don't have the get up and go that a car has, and and this is not a hit on our police department, we don't have the capacity to slow those vehicles down.
I would just make a comment. I understand what you're saying. I was asked to provide a draft of an ordinance and bring it back to you. So these aren't my proposals. I'm not advocating for or against it. I think I might feel a little bit differently on some of this. It's inherently unsafe to get in a vehicle or golf cart, motorcycle, car, I don't care. I personally don't think we should plaster the town with signs and where to go and where not to go. Ignorance is no excuse for not knowing the law. We give them a map when they get the thing, and then they're supposed to stay on those streets. I'm sure some amount of signage will be necessary at some points where we issue problems. I do not think we should establish crossings on 173, at least not at this point without an engineering study. So then we're making, I think, an affirmative statement, safe to cross here. I don't think we should do that as a village for liability reason. I think we should acknowledge that it's golf cart user at risk. We may allow you to travel on our streets, but I don't think you can make an argument that this is going to be a safe thing. Sure as I'm standing here, somebody's going to get hurt on a golf cart over time. It's going to happen.
They get hurt in cars, so yes.
Right, so, you know, the intent here was not to, you know, we're trying to make it as, I guess, take away the more dangerous situations, but I don't think as a village, we should be, you know, saying, this is where you need to cross 173, we think it's safe, because then happen to know there are attorneys out there that will drag us in. I think, my opinion is, we show them a map, this is where you're allowed to be, and, you know, see how it goes.
Well, I just want to respond to your comment. I know that you were asked to bring forth this ordinance, and I appreciate that. I'm not suggesting that you're proposing all of this personally. I thought we were having a discussion about our own inputs on it. And my input is that we should not allow crossing those busy streets. That's all I have at this time.
Right, thank you. So, do we want to just come back to the cow one more time, or do we want to move this to the regular business agenda?
Suggest the cows one more time to get it clarified.
Okay. So we'll bring this back one more time for the cow. I know that the dates were April 1st to maybe December 1st. So won't be this year probably anyway, so we'll bring it back in a couple, either 2 weeks or 30 days to clean it up. All right, next item on the agenda, which I lost again, is Christmas lights. All right, so a discussion regarding Christmas tree lighting.
Okay, so a while back, Park Board made a recommendation to illuminate Christmas lights, one of the trees by the band shell. I think everybody think, oh, that would be a neat idea. I don't think people really understood logistically the cost and difficulty on decorating those large trees. So in any event, the Park Board is aware that there's a cost associated with this. We got some quotes. I think 45 or $6,500 is what it takes to do a tree right. You know, if we put, I think if you use that as your tree lighting, you want that wow factor, I'm pretty sure. Because I've seen the repercussions on Facebook when we don't decorate trees properly. So this is what it is. You know, it's completely up to you. It's within my spending limit. I just don't think when the board said, yeah, go ahead and do that, they were cognizant of there was going to be a $6,500 spend on this tree. So it's, unless I hear, I'm going to go forward with this unless you have a discussion here and tell me not to spend that money decorating that tree.
All right. Trustee Pierce.
Let's go around.
All right, Trustee Basic.
The parks, I think it's a good idea. It's their committee.
Trustee Peterson.
Since the large tree died in front of Village Hall, every year we light that little tree and the whole town gathers around the Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
We should play the Charlie Brown song.
And we all ask ourselves, why are we doing this when there is a 40-foot tree right by the tank over there? Anyway, Park Board really wants that tree lit with Santa Claus up on the band shell. And there's a lot of room for people to end the parade right there. Everyone can see if you all gathering around Village Hall, there's so many people that can't see, they just leave. The choir sings. It would be so much nicer at the band shell, and the tree would be lit. There's that light show. It'll be lit all season, so I know it's expensive, but Park Board said they really want it, so I'm gonna go with the Park Board.
Thank you. Trustee Luther.
I'm 100% for it. I think we should be 6,000 lights. It's really shiny. But I do have a question. This is a legitimate question. Do these get taken down or do they stay on the tree? Because I've left my lights on for 3-4 years and not had a problem. We're not going to spend this every year, are we? Or do they go on and just stay on the tree and hopefully they work the next year and then they just fix those that are out? Or
I'm gonna defer to Dennis to see what his recommendation will be. I think they could stay up, but we'll at least own the lights. They're expensive to buy that many lights, so whether we pay to decorate it, on a yearly basis, it would be much
Yeah,
less.
I mean, I'm just curious, because I'm assuming they could stay on the tree and it wouldn't hurt the tree.
Probably not those trees.
No, I'm all in favor.
Okay.
Trustee Berman?
After hearing that, that was my fear, was that that was gonna be like an annual fee. I'm in favor of it. I think the town would thoroughly enjoy it.
I think the intent, though, is when we have this centerpiece park, is to probably move this activity and have a specimen tree or something there and use that space to end the parade. And, instead of a more permanent arrangement for this, I think this tree may be temporary until we have something better, which is coming.
There might be an opportunity for a sponsorship of the Christmas lights. I mean, probably too soon for this year, but moving forward.
Trustee Dominion?
Yeah, I'm reading this and it looks like they maintain the ownership. It says all services above include install and set timers, run all extension cords. Lights, decorations, timers, and extension cords are leased from Northern Power Washing. Will return to Northern upon takedown or replace at customer's expense. And includes takedown, cleanup in January, February, weather depending.
We're not going in there.
It also says that this is warranted until January of this year, so probably need to fix that typo, but it looks like we're just leasing this, we're not purchasing it.
I'm mistaken. I thought we were purchasing that.
So that
No,
would
that's
mean
not
that
the
we
one.
are,
That was one of the other quotes that we got. That's not the company we're going with. The other
that's
company-
what's in the packet, the Northern Power Washing.
Yeah,
LLC.
it was, the park board had recommended that we get 3 other quotes before. So we're going with Temple, the original quote.
Okay, that's not the one that's in here. So we're gonna own them then?
Yes.
It is in the packet, you just gotta scroll down a little bit.
Can we just get
I don't
email
know
Mr.
that.
Brown's exact one?
Page 150.
Yeah, it's the last page of the whole packet is this.
Okay, all right.
It's 4583 on this one.
Yes, that's the Temple.
So it's not 6,500. But are we? I think we should do this.
Okay.
Figure it out.
That's
All right.
Thank you.
Trustee Pierce, do you have anything on your end?
No, I'm just not gonna get up the stage and play Santa.
Okay. All right, so I guess this is within your authority, so get it done. All right, any other business that needs to be discussed? All right,
I just wanted to make a comment, as one of the people that attended the IML meeting last week, I went to a session on home rule versus non-home rule. And so I scarfed up all of the presentation, overhead presentations that were printed, and I put them in everybody's mailbox, including the administrative staff and the board. So in case you're wondering where that came from, that was my gift to you.
thank you. I have no need for executive session. Any requests for executive session?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, trustee
Second.
Pierce, second trustee Peterson. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 6 voting yes, 0 voting no. Motion is carried, adjourned at 8:23 PM.